Hello, welcome to another episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. Today is Tuesday, February 13th. Hope everybody's having a good day so far. We are now 2 days removed from Super Bowl 58. It is officially the NFL offseason as all 32 teams get set for another offseason, get set to get ready for another season here in about 200 plus days from now. We'll kick off week one. A lot needs to happen before then. The MLB is upon us. Baseball season is almost here. Pitchers and catchers continue to report here over the next couple days along with regular position players. You've already got some guys down in Florida, down in Tampa and Port St. Lucie with the Mets. Lindor was taking batting practice today. You see Judge sagging some balls in the outfield, also hitting the cage. We're at this stage with baseball season where it's the little stuff right now that gets you excited. I always say there's different steps in spring training, even with every sport. When training camp begins for football, that gets you pumped up. And then after a while, then it's the first preseason game, and you're all excited. And after a while, that starts to get old, and then it's opening day. Right now, we're at the point where we want baseball so much that just even a clip of Aaron Judge taking a fly ball in center field gets you excited, and in the first spring training game will get you excited. But then after a while, then you're like, all right, get us to opening day. There's always that different steps, those different levels. We'll get to a little bit of baseball today. An interesting night last night in the world of New York sports. The New York Rangers pick up a very big win, 2-0 over the Flames to extend their win streak to 5 straight, the longest active streak right now in the National Hockey League. And the New York Knicks lose a heartbreaker against the Houston Rockets, 105-103. Jalen Brunson makes a big mid-range to tie the game at 103, and then takes a foul with 0.3 seconds left. Rockets go to the line, hit both their free throws, and the Knicks go on to lose 105-103 on a very controversial foul. I don't love it. I don't think it's a great call, but it's the NBA. Nothing surprises you anymore. In that league, you see a lot of these ticky-tack, bad calls, so that doesn't really surprise me. It wasn't good, but we've seen this before. I think even at times we've maybe even seen worse happen, especially late in games. The NBA and the fouls are out of control in some of these big moments. So that happens there, and the Knicks now lose 3 straight, taking some lumps. It's expected. They're banged up, fresh off the deadline. Got to get these new pieces mixed in. Bogdanovich, Alec Burks. Of course, you don't have Randall. OG Anunoby's out as well. You're missing key guys. It's really Brunson, and that's it. You're missing key pieces, and it always feels like after the deadline, sometimes teams struggle because you get new guys. Sometimes you've still got guys hurt. You're kind of in an interesting area with the way your roster is constructed. But you'd rather the Knicks take these lumps now, have these injuries happen now, than April, May, and hopefully well into June if they get to an NBA Finals, which is obviously the ultimate goal once the playoffs come around. So we got a lot to get into today on the podcast. We're going to first discuss the Yankees rotation. It's been a hot topic this offseason. Blake Snell is still out there. You see Corbin Burnes go to the in-division rival Baltimore Orioles. Did the Yankees do enough this offseason with their rotation? We'll also take a look at some reasons to believe, not to believe. And is this the final rotation? Are they going to make a move here in the next couple days as spring training moves on, and to make a move for a Blake Snell or somebody else, make a trade and bring somebody in to finalize this rotation? Because a lot of fans, including myself, don't love it. There's reason to be skeptical. There's reason to be optimistic. We'll break it all down. Reasons to believe, not to believe in this rotation. And then, of course, like I said, the Rangers have won 5 straight games. We'll discuss that today. 5 straight wins for the Rangers. Igor Shesterkin looked great yesterday, putting aside 30 shots, all 30 shots he faced. First shutout since April 28th of last year. So it's been a little while. Rough season for Igor. Good to see him bounce back yesterday, have a really good game. And, hey, maybe this is the start of something for him to get back into the groove, get back to the Igor Shesterkin that we've seen over the last 2 years. And that is one of the better goaltenders in the NHL. And, of course, we'll get you set as well. Tonight, Islanders will host the Kraken. The Nets will host the Celtics in a first of 2 games against each other, home and road, over the next 2 days. Home tonight, then they'll hit the road and play Boston on Thursday. All right, I apologize. They'll play Boston tomorrow. So back-to-back there, home and away, in Brooklyn tonight, in Boston tomorrow. So we'll start off today with the Yankees rotation. Like I said, it's baseball, pitchers and catchers report right now. So we're at this time like you get in every sport where whether it's the NFL, when training camp happens, the first day of training camp, you're like, oh, this is awesome. You see a guy running. You see, from a Jet standpoint, this past year, you saw Aaron Rodgers running on the field, and you're like, oh, this is awesome. This is great. It's the same thing here. The little bit of content, and you progressively want to get more and more and more. But right now, we're at a point where we just want baseball so badly that you're seeing Judge take fly balls in the outfield, and you're like, this is awesome. And then once spring training starts, you hit that next level, and you're like, this is great. And then eventually, after a while, all this gets old, and you're like, all right, get me to opening day, which the Yankees, of course, will open up in Houston, and hopefully is the start of a very, very successful 2024 season, a lot more successful than last year. But it's interesting when you look at the Yankees offseason just as a whole, because I think when you looked at it at the beginning and you saw they went out and got Juan Soto, made the big trade, the evil empire strikes back, all of those big things that happen. You see all that happen, you're thinking to yourself, this is awesome. The Yankees are having a 2009-esque offseason, or 2008 into 2009, where they went all in. They brought in pieces to help them win a World Series, get one more World Series with the core four, and you're like, this is what the Yankees are trying to do. They missed the playoffs last year. Was an absolute disaster of a season. Even with the injuries, the team wasn't going anywhere if they were healthy. I mean, the lineup was an issue. You did nothing last offseason to help the issues from 2022. You had, you had lineups. You had guys that were playing that you would never even thought in your wildest dreams would be playing games would be playing a significant amount of games in a Yankee uniform. Billy McKinney, Jake Bowers, all these guys, outfield problems left and right, locker room issues. Josh Donaldson was a disaster. It was a mess. It was a mess. You had a rotation outside of Garrett Cole that was a complete disaster. So you go into this offseason, you're thinking to yourself, you got to make a big move. You got to bring in a Juan Soto. You can't settle for a Cody Bellinger. You've got to go all in for a Juan Soto, get him here, and go all in for other pieces. You missed the playoffs last year. You cannot do that again. You've got to spend as much money as possible. You've got to go all in on this season. You've got to go back to being the New York Yankees, the evil empire, where you spend, bring in all the big pieces, be the most hated team, and go after a World Series title. And they sort of did that with the Juan Soto stuff, but that was about it. It was Juan Soto and a bunch of other small signings here and there. That was pretty much the Yankees offseason. It was Juan Soto, and that was it. Now, you did bring in Marcus Stroman. Is that really going to move the needle that much? I think it's a solid signing. You definitely have your doubts with him and the Yankee fans. Can he handle the pressure? He had some highs with the Mets, but there was definitely some lows at points with the Mets already playing in the big market in New York. Can he handle the pressure? He's publicly in past years criticized the Yankees, criticized Cashman. Now all of a sudden to turn around and call it your childhood favorite team, all these great things, a dream come true, when just a couple years ago you were smashing them. You do have some doubt in your mind about that, but in terms of his play on the field, he's a solid arm. He's a solid 3-4 option for a playoff team. That's what he's been throughout his career, and that's what you get. So I think you grade the offseason as a whole as it's kind of a question. You still head into this season with questions. You still have them. You love the Juan Soto sign. You obviously bring in Verdugo as well. You like the outfield, but other than that, you still have some questions about the rotation. That's the biggest thing. We said going into the offseason, bring in another big arm next to Cole, whether that's a Burns, whether that's a Blake Snell, somebody. And then Yamamoto, who of course went to the Dodgers. Ohtani was never a realistic option to bring in as a big name player. We knew he wasn't coming to New York. We knew he wanted to stay out west. That was pretty obvious. Yamamoto, Corbin Burns, Blake Snell, somebody like that. Burns off the board. Yamamoto off the board. Blake Snell is still there. Do the Yankees bring him in? I would probably lean towards no. I think he's going to sign somewhere. He's got to. It's weird to think Blake Snell won the Cy Young last year, and this guy is still available. Not too many times do you see guys win the Cy Young, hit free agency, and have such a I don't want to say small market, but have such unwillingness from teams to hit the mark that he wants to get in terms of pay. The Yankees have made formal offers for him, but he wants more. Will the Yankees spring training realize, hey, we need another key arm? If an injury occurs, which you hope not, then they pull the trigger? I think Blake Snell is going to sign at some point. I think it's going to happen probably within the next couple weeks, because you're going to see whether a team notices one guy's having a slow start in spring training, or there's always going to be an injury, or there's always going to be injuries in spring training. Unfortunately, it just happens every year. There's always going to be a couple teams that suffer a really key injury. It happens every season. Last year with the Mets, unfortunately, it was Edwin Diaz. For the Yankees, well, Edwin Diaz was World Baseball Classic, but it was still in that range of spring training time. And, of course, the Yankees, it was Carlos Rodon who missed the first chunk of the season, which, of course, I don't think really benefited his year. So when you look at the rotation right now, you got Garrett Cole. You got Rodon as your number 2. Marcus Stroman slots in as your 3. Your 4 is Nestor Cortez. And your 5 is Clark Schmidt. So, it's interesting because, some people look at the rotation and will try and put a positive and a negative spin on it as to why you should and should not believe, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are similar to me, and I think a lot of other Yankee fans, that there still needs to be one more piece. I don't love going into the regular season with this rotation. I think you've got some injury questions. You've got some overall production questions, like what is Carlos Rodon going to do? You know what Garrett Cole is, and then it's Garrett Cole really, and in four question marks for various different reasons, whether it's injuries, overall just performance, off-the-field stuff like Marcus Stroman. So we'll first take a look at the positives, some reasons to believe in this rotation as currently constructed. As I mentioned, you got Garrett Cole. He's your workhorse. 33 games started last year. He was the Cy Young. You're going to get 7 innings plus out of him every 5 days. 15-4 was tied for 6th in the MLB last year, had a 2.63 ERA, which was 2nd in baseball, 222 strikeouts, 5th in baseball, and a .98 whip, 1st in baseball. All of that in 200-plus innings, exactly 209 innings pitched last season. He's been a heck of a signing. I know he had some of the sticky stuff, but everything you could have asked for when you got Garrett Cole has done just that. First career Cy Young last season, an absolute workhorse, dominant, Cole train rolling through. He's going to have another huge year. He's going to be in the Cy Young conversation as long as he's in his prime, as long as he's healthy. We all know that. That's clear. And knock on wood, Cole's been able to make starts every 5 days. That's what makes him so impressive, too, is 33 starts. He's not a guy that's going to miss much time. He's been healthy. He takes care of his body. He's not going to be a guy that's going to, only give you 5. He's going to give you 7. He's going to pitch every game almost like it's a playoff game. Willing to go 7, willing to go 8, willing to get over 100 pitches, willing to just go all the way to where he's got no gas left in the tank every 5 days. Dominant. So as long as you have him at the top of the rotation, you're going to feel solid with him at the top. And then you think to yourself, if the rest of them could just be solid, it'll be a productive rotation. They'll have a good year. The possibility of Rodon bounce back. Now, look, I think when you look at Rodon last year, he was, to put it simply, was awful. I don't love to make excuses for guys. I know he dealt with injuries. Some people feel he was still dealing with injuries while he was pitching. He only made 14 starts. It was one of the worst years I can remember for a Yankee pitcher in their first season. In terms of a big signing, he was awful. 3-8, 6.85 ERA, 64 strikeouts, 1.45 whip, 64 1/3 innings pitched. This was a guy that could not get out of the first inning against the Kansas City Royals. That tells you all you need to know about what he was last year. He had about 2 good starts. I remember during the season, every time we'd start, we'd always rank him. We'd be like, all right, he's made 10 starts. There's 2 been good, 8 been terrible. He had about 2-3 good starts last year, 11 really bad ones. Maybe 10 bad, maybe 9, 8 bad ones, 3 and about, 2 really good. That's probably about it. Not even really good. I don't even think he didn't have a really, really good start where he went 7 strong. And, the first game against the Cubs, He was all right the one time against the Mets. He had some games. I think remember the one game against the Red Sox where he was okay, but there was a lot of bad ones where he was out after 2-3 innings. Again, couldn't get out of the first inning against the Kansas City Royals, who were one of the worst teams in baseball last year. That's pathetic. But the possible bounce back, I look at it this. He can't be any worse. He cannot be any worse. 6.85 ERA, he's already going to be better than that. There's no way he is worse. So you have to think to yourself, like, he's already going to be better. Just the law of averages. He's got to be better. There is no way what he's been able to do in his career is he going to be worse than he was last year. He also dealt with those injuries. He lost weight this offseason. You hear around the team, you hear players, you hear coaches say he's in the best shape of his career. And now I know we've heard that before, and all sports guys say, oh, best shape of our career. They go out there and they don't do anything. But I think you feel a lot better about him if he's healthy because he did deal with injuries. He could never find a rhythm. This was a guy that missed the first 2 months of the season last year. Right? You can get him healthy from the start, losing weight, more muscle, more stress on the arm, or less stress on the arm, possibility of him going out there and making, opposed to 14 starts, never finding a rhythm, 28, 29 starts, and consistently going out there every 5 days, he can be productive. I think the biggest thing for me is he can't be any worse. He can't. I mean, that's not saying much because he could go out there and have a 5 ERA this year and make 20 starts and be still terrible, and he'd be better than last year because he'd make more starts and he have a low ERA. I don't think you're going to see him have a higher than a 6.85 ERA. That's not saying much, but this is a guy that's only 2 years removed from being one of the better pitchers in baseball. Is it crazy for him to regain that form? I don't think so. So again, this is belief. This isn't totally what I feel. This is just reasons for you all to believe. Stroman's a solid piece. We'll get to the off the field stuff in a second, but look, he's a solid piece. He went 10-9 last year in 25 starts, 3.95 ERA, 119 strikeouts, 1.26 WHIP, 136.2 innings pitched. He's productive. He's what you're going to need in a 3-4 guy. If you bring in Blake Snell will slot in as your 2. He'll be your 4. Nestor will be your 5. Clark will probably hit the bullpen or be a sixth guy if you want to go with a 6-man rotation at any point during the year. But he's going to be solid piece. He's going to be a 3.8, 3.9, 3.7, maybe even mid-3. He can get down to 3.4, 3.5 ERA guy. That's what you're going to get out of him. He's going to be productive. He's going to start 26, 27, 28 games. Middle of the rotation. He's going to do what you need him to do. He's not a number 1. He's not a 2. On a World Series team, is he a 3? I think you have maybe some doubts. He's more of a 4, I would say. I think you probably trust him more as a 4. But 3-4, he's solid. His on-the-field stuff, I will say, is solid. The off-the-field, you do have some questions. But on the field, on the mound, taking the ball every 5 days, you trust him in that type of role. And you're asking him to be solid. You're asking him to be a mid-3 ERA guy. He can do that. He's done that throughout his career. Nestor staying healthy. Look, if Nestor's healthy, he was one of the better pitchers in baseball, a year ago when he was healthy. Last year dealt with the injuries, of course. The year prior, 2022, he was healthy. It was crazy to think about how much sports, like we always talk about it, life come at you so fast in sports. It is crazy how 2 years ago we were talking about a wild card game. Do you start Nestor Cortez or Garrett Cole? Because 2022, Garrett Cole, or 2021 rather, both those seasons, there was some of that conversation of Nestor was so good. And, Garrett Cole at times with the sticky stuff breakdown, 2021, 2022, had the sticky stuff. People were wondering, okay, is this guy really the ace? Is he really going to live up to his contract? And then everybody's like, oh, Nestor Cortez, wild card game. Do you start Nestor over Garrett Cole? Some people really thought that. And it was a realistic discussion at that point because Nestor was so good. So for him to get back to that, Nestor was pitching like a number 2, maybe even a number 1 on some teams. He's slotting in as the 4, potentially the 5 if they go out and add a guy like a Blake Snell. He wasn't healthy last year. 12 games, 5-2, 4.97 ERA, 67 strikeouts, 1.25 WHIP, 63 and a third innings pitched. If he's healthy, you feel confident about Nestor. I don't think he'll reach the below 3 ERA that he was at 2 years ago, or a year ago, I should say. where there was discussions about him being the number one over Cole, which is a crazy thought. He'll never get back to that. I think he's more of a mid to low 3 ERA guy at best. But for that to be your 4, kind of a nasty junk baller type guy, we know what Nestor can do. And then Clark Schmidt last year, Clark got off to a bad start last season. I thought he was streaky a little bit. He's got some ups, got some downs. He needs to work on the consistency. He'll have 3-4 really good games, and he'll have a couple really bad ones. He was awful to start the season and then got better. Finished 9-9, 4.64 ERA, 149 strikeouts, 1.35 WHIP, 159 innings pitched, and 32 starts. Look, I think Clark last year, he was solid. Really like what you saw from some of the off-speed stuff. As the year went on, he got better. For a 5th option, he's all right. He's solid. He does his job. He's going to be a high to low 4 ERA guy, but for an innings guy that's going to pitch, if he's going to make 30 starts as the 5, I think come playoff team, he's not going to be starting playoff games. So it's the 5th starter is really just rounding out your rotation. I think Clark does that fine. So those are believe reasons. Now, to not believe, look, what I just told you, they're all unknowns, really. In past years, you felt good about a rotation. Like, we went into last year, and there was a lot of unknowns. It was, if Sevy could stay healthy, if Frankie Montes could stay healthy, right? We had all these ifs. And then look how they played out. Sevy was awful. Montes couldn't stay healthy. That was the problem. We go into this year again with all these ifs. If Carlos Rodon is healthy and loses weight and back to his form. All these ifs. Like, there is a lot of unknowns. And I said this for a while now, the only person that you know for sure is going to go out there, give it every 5 days, dominate is Garrett Cole. Other than that, you could come up with questions for all these guys. Whether it's health with Nestor, off the field locker room stuff with Stroman, just Rodon bouncing back from an awful season. Clark Schmidt, I don't really think there's too many questions. He is what he is. But he's your 5th starter. You don't want your 5th starter to be the only one of 2 guys that doesn't have any questions facing them. The middle of the rotation is a lot of questions. Unknowns. Talk about Stroman, the market, the big market. How is he going to handle it? Stroman, before he even pitches, throws his first pitch in a Yankee uniform, has a ton of pressure on him. Because he is going to go out there, and if he struggles early in his Yankee career, first start, second start, he is going to get slammed. He is going to get booed. He is. Because of the history between the two. Look, I will always say it. I've said it with all my sports teams. There is guys that I was never a big fan of that come to my teams and I root for them. You root super hard for them because they're in your uniform, they're wearing pinstripes. And every Yankee fan agrees with that. Even what he has said about the organization in the past. He's in the Yankee pinstripes. He wants to win. He's here to win. He's here to help the team. You root for him. He's a member of the team. But if he struggles and those old quotes start to get up and there's rumors of him, maybe there's some bad blood again forming there. For all of what he said in the past, if he comes out here and struggles, it's going to get ugly really fast. The saying it's going to get laid out early is true. So, I like the signing in terms of what he brings on the field, but there are some questions about his off-the-field stuff. But I do look at it as the flip side, and the Yankees need a little bit of a punch in the face in the locker room. I think we've all said that for a while. This Yankee team's they've been very boring. They have no real personality. Like, they've needed guys that are going to go out there, be a little cocky, be that confident type guy, have a little fire to them. I think, and they brought in 2 guys that I think do that really well. Stroman's got a little fire to him. He's got a lot of fire to him. Not all good. Sometimes it's bad fire. But in terms of confident, help the team win fire, he's got some of that. He can be a pain sometimes. He can be a little annoying, show some emotion, got a little bit of fire to him. Even Cole does on the mound. I don't think so much off the field, but I think more so on the field. Cole's not afraid to express himself on the mound to opposing teams, opposing guys. He's not afraid. He's got that competitive fire to him. And I also think Juan Soto does as well. We know the ball grab, the shuffle in the box definitely gets with pitchers. So I thought they've done a good job of actually bringing in some guys. Even Verdugo, too. He's got some of that, fire to him. We remember a couple years ago him yelling at Yankee fans. He's not afraid to go after somebody. He's not afraid to say something, show emotion. He's got some of that. I think the Yankees have needed that. Kind of some of those villains in a way. They're not villains. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but those guys are going to add a little bit of an edge to this locker room. Add a little bit of an edge to a locker room that needs it. I think Stroman does that on the flip side of some of the off-the-field stuff. Right now, another thing to not believe is right now, you don't have a legitimate 1-2 punch. You bring in Snell, you have a legitimate 1-2 punch. Rodon was supposed to be the 1-2 punch. We don't fully know what Rodon is. And then also health. Like I said, at the top. It kind of falls in with the unknowns. You have some health, stuff with Rodon, Nestor, the big ones, the two big ones. Both guys last year, early in the season. Rodon didn't make it out of camp. Of course, Nestor early in the season, and then many times last year hit the IL, missed time. So the health is a little bit of a concern. And unfortunately for the Yankees, outside of Cole, there's been a lot of health problems in the rotation. There's just been a lot. Whether it was Sevy, whether it was Nestor, Rodon last year. There's been a lot of guys that have dealt with some of those injuries. Montez, another guy as well. So unfortunately, even go to the bullpen. Scott Efros, had to get Tommy John. So the Yankees have dealt with a lot of injuries, and that's where some of the Randy Vasquez's of the world have came up a little bit more in the past, but a JP Sears, like that's where those minor league guys have come up and have had to play roles. And as much as those opportunities are good for those guys, you want a healthy rotation as much as possible. That's what you want. And the Yankees, unfortunately, have had a lot of guys only start 15, 16 games the past couple seasons because they've been on the IL multiple times. And I think some of those concerns are real again. So, look, overall, when I look at this rotation, I don't think it's awful, as some people say. I think you've got some concerns. By no means am I saying this is perfect. I will say this. I won't have the biggest confidence in the world if they go into the regular season with this. I would still like to see Blake Snell here or somebody along that line. Because look, you look around them. Look at the Orioles. Their in-division rival. Look what they did. They went out and got Corbin Burns. There's no excuse for the Yankees to not go out and bring in a guy who won a Cy Young last year. I think you think about this rotation a whole lot different if you just add Snell. Because then you have a legitimate 1-2 punch. You have two guys that won the Cy Young last year. You have Rodon at 3, take some of the pressure off of him. You have Stroman at 4, which, like I said, 3-4, he's solid. And you have Nestor at 6, and Nestor at 5, rather, Schmidt can be your 6. And I think then you look at the rotation, you think about it totally different than how you look at it now, just by adding that one piece. Because Snell is a big-time piece. So, I still think it's missing that little bit, still missing that one piece. But, have we seen worse? Yeah, I think we've seen worse. I would probably say this rotation are probably better than last year because you got rid of Sevy. You don't have Montez to worry about with all the injuries. Like some of those things. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Yankees play out. I think they have a lot of trust. Look, the Yankees have kind of turned into that organization where they trust their guys. Boone has those core guys that he trusts. This rotation, he trusts them. I also think part of Cashman is he made a large investment. He paying 6 years, $200+ million for Carlos Rodon. He paid him to be a number 2. I think he's a little worried to go out there, give Blake Snell all this money again a year after he gave Rodon all that money. I think he wants to get some sort of return on investment Rodon. He wants to see him prove it. He paid all that money for him. After just 14 starts, I'm not all of us going to demote him down to 3. I think that's part of it, too. I think Cashman sees, hey, we paid for a legitimate 2 next year. We got to get something out of him. I think that's part of it. So, the Yankees, again, they trust their guys. They trust their players. Sometimes they a little too much, but it is what it is. That's kind of what they do. That's what they are at. That's what they are like right now. So, hit me up on Twitter at Bubbs52 and leave your comments down below. What are your thoughts on the Yankees rotation? Like it? Don't like it? You kind of in the boat of me where I'm going to wait and see games, seeing if they can still add another piece. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I think it's outside of Cole, I think it's very average. Very average. Nothing more than that. You can make the argument it's below average outside of Cole, and that's a problem. So we'll see. We'll see where they're at. But again, last year we went into the regular season with all these high expectations. Best rotation in baseball. And then it blew up in our face. This year, not so much. Maybe the expectations, all that stuff, maybe it'll turn into be good. Look, if Rodon is what he is 2 years ago, you're getting you're going to have one of the best 1-2 punches in baseball. That's the biggest thing. I think Rodon by far is the biggest X factor. There's two guys this season that are huge X factors: Carlos Rodon and Giancarlo Stanton. If Carlos Rodon can have a huge year, and if Stanton can go out there and hit 30-plus bombs and be productive, 250, 260, have an OPS back in the 800, 900s rather than last year, which was horrible. Even cracked 40 home runs. If Stanton turns in to what we've seen at him at times in a Yankee uniform and just stay healthy, that lineup all of a sudden turns into a huge threat. It's even bigger threat. You get Stanton at his best, plus Soto, Judge, and Rizzo. I mean, you love that lineup. You love the power there. And the same thing with Rodon. If he's back to what he was behind Cole. But you're asking two guys that are coming off of career worst seasons to be at their best again. You're asking a lot. All right, so now I move on to the hockey world, where things are looking good for the New York Rangers here over the last couple games. And I'll tell you what, it's been a very interesting last month, I would say, for the Rangers, because you go into the new year. January was a really rough month. Really rough month. They go into the All-Star break, and in that Ottawa Senators game, they were down 2-0. And you're thinking to yourself, man, they're going to go into the All-Star break completely limping. The Carolina Hurricanes, the Philadelphia Flyers are right behind them, right on their tails, chasing them. And you're thinking to yourself, this is going to get ugly. The Rangers could easily come out of the All-Star break and find themselves looking up in the Metropolitan standings as opposed to looking down on everybody in first. And here they come out of the All-Star break, and they have found ways to continue to win. And I don't even think they're playing their best hockey. And they've come out of the All-Star break, and they've had to face two really good teams in the Avalanche and the Lightning. Got the job done. I thought they played really good games in both those games, especially the Avalanche game, one of the best teams in hockey. Talent all over the place. Cal McCarr. Georgiev had a very good night that night. Former Ranger. Nathan McKinnon, we all know what he's capable of. Rantanen, we all know. We all know that Avalanche team's they're just a year removed from winning a Stanley Cup. They are one of the best teams in the NHL to have a chance at that. Winning that game and then winning against the Lightning 3-1 were great wins. Extended your win streak to 3. That Blackhawks game was ugly. Very ugly. Very ugly. They were up 3-1. They had some chances. They kind of got complacent. Blackhawks started to generate chances. Rangers didn't play a very good second half. Or I shouldn't say second half. They didn't really play a very good second period, third period. Played very well in the first period. Second period and third period were all Blackhawks, really. They end up blowing the lead. The game ties at 3-3. 6 minutes left and an empty net. The Blackhawks score 3-3. Rangers end up winning in overtime. But, it was a win is a win, but you walk away from that game and you're kind of thinking to yourself, it felt like a loss. Because they won the game, but the way they won it against one of the worst teams in the NHL without their young superstar in Connor Bedard, you're thinking to yourself, how in the world do you blow a lead against the Blackhawks? The Blackhawks can't score. They can't score. And you allowed them to score two goals in the final 6 minutes. So you're thinking to yourself, that's bad, really bad. And you came out of that game not feeling great about Igor again. Even though they got the win, you saw Igor let up some questionable goals. So you go into last night, and you're on the 4-game win streak, but you still feel like that Blackhawks win, even though it was a win, you weren't satisfied with it. You go into last night, I thought the Rangers played well. They got the win, 2-0. Igor was awesome. I don't even think it was necessarily the Rangers' best game, but I thought they played really, really well. They had a lot of chances on that. Jacob Markstrom made 29 saves on 30 shots faced. Easily deserved the third star, as much as I know we hate it when guys get the third star when you're home. But a very good game last night for Markstrom. I mean, he was phenomenal. It was really a matchup of two goalies that were completely on their game, and it's frustrating because I feel like a lot of times the Rangers find themselves in games where they get robbed by goalies. Though even if it's a backup goalie, they'll get robbed, or a former Ranger goalie like Georgiev, where a lot of that game he was playing really well, of course, until the Rangers ended up winning in overtime with the Alexis Lafreniere goal. But last night felt like a game that the New York Rangers commanded all three periods. Early in that game, first period, they outshot the Flames 11-6, I think. And then there was even a point in that first period where they were out shooting them like 6-7 shots to 1. They were putting a ton of pressure. It was a lot of grade A chances. They could have easily walked away from that game last night winning 5-0. Easily. I mean, Alexis Lafreniere himself, which you got to feel for him because he's been so good this season. He just hasn't been able to finish goals, and it's been super unfortunate. He's been able to get rewarded a little bit more here. Again, that Avalanche goal in overtime, very clutch. He's been very clutch, especially coming out of the All-Star break. You fast forward a year prior, he, of course, scored the game-winning goal against the Flames in overtime, then scored the game-winning goal against the Avalanche. Early in the season, he had the game-winning goal against the Blue Jackets. He's had a lot of big ones. A lot of big ones. But he's gotten robbed a lot. I mean, this is a guy that easily could have 15 more goals than he has. Now, that's crazy to say, but it's easily. Last night, he could have had at least 2 goals, even 3. I mean, he had 4 really good chances. He could have easily had 2-3 goals. And the Rangers as a team could have scored 6 goals last night, but Jacob Markstrom was phenomenal. But on the other side, it was Igor Shesterkin, who was great. And last night was the first time in a very, very long time, in well over a month, that you saw Igor Shesterkin play like Igor Shesterkin. And I mean that as you saw Igor go out there and play like look like one of the better goalies in the NHL. This is a guy that has really struggled this season. Not been the same guy, especially in January. Had a lot of really, really tough games in January where he didn't look good. Even the games that they were winning, they weren't winning because of him. In a way, they were kind of winning in spite of him. He was doing just enough. The last month, Jonathan Quick's been the better goalie by a lot. I think that's pretty obvious. But last night was the first time that you saw a vintage Igor Vezina performance. Big saves, glove saves, big stops late in that game. Flames, I believe it was like 5-6 minutes left, had like 3 really good chances on a couple rebounds, couple deflections in front. Igor stayed focused, made the pad saves, and the Rangers were able to win. He almost scored as well. Tried to go for the empty net, missed it. One day he'll get that. But that was a huge performance, and you hope that's huge for his confidence. Because even in the Blackhawks game, he wasn't great. Let up the goal early, let up the 2 goals late in that game, which part of it, I think the Rangers, part of it was defensively. Their net front defense wasn't great. They kind of gave up. They got complacent in the end of it, but you hope that last night Igor can take that and continue to build off of that. Because if you get that Igor the rest of the way, and you hope that's the start of something, and you have Quick, the Rangers' chances of going deep into the playoffs get even better. If you get Igor playing at that level last night. I'm not saying shut out every single night. That's not going to happen. That's impossible. But if you get him making those big saves, having these consistent 1-2 goal allowed games where he's just on top of his game, focused, nothing's getting past him. Because a lot of the big issue with Igor, what separates the great goalies amongst the average to good goalies is the type of shots that they let in, the gimmies. There was a lot of shots that Igor was letting in that were, in terms like he'd take. It's hard to phrase it, but like a very savable shot he let in. That's what separates the great goalies amongst the good goalies. For a while, Igor's always been a guy that nothing's going to get past him. Nothing. You're going to have to be on top of your game every time you get into the O-zone. You're going to have to get rebounds, second chance. You're going to have to shoot, get pucks on net. Nothing fancy. You just got to find, it's going to take sometimes some ugly goals, but Igor's not going to let in softies. Like a lot of times what separates the great ones and the good ones is the ones that don't let up the softies and the ones that do. And Igor, for the last really month and a half, up until last night, was letting in a lot of softies. There was a lot of there was a lot of saves that he was making previously in his career that he wasn't making over this recent stretch. Last night, he finally turned that in. Not many gimmies. There's not many goals that Igor and the great goalies let in. Like where you kind of just get lucky, where it just goes through the 5-hole or they lose track of it or, stuff like that. Not many the room for error is so much more smaller when you're going up against those great ones, and Igor is one of them until this recent stretch, but has really bounced back. And I thought Igor had a really good late month of December. He played really well, and then January again fell off, but last night was really good. You hope this is the start of something for him as he gets his save percentage back above 900, goals allowed per game at 2.78, but really good performance last night. You feel good for him. He's faced a lot of pressure. He's faced a lot of criticism, and rightfully so. It's got to be tough to be in his shoes. He's been the number one guy. Everyone said, is this guy the next Lundqvist? And all that stuff. And for him to have make everything look easy early in his career, to face some adversity and have a backup that legitimately was playing better than him for the first time in his career, it takes a toll on you. It does. He didn't have much confidence. And then to see Quick go out there and do what he was doing, it can only have lowered his confidence and only have put more pressure on him. So it was good to see him go out there last night. As much as we all love Jonathan Quick and he's put together a great season, it's been a great story at his age to do this. All the credit goes to Ben Willaire for turning another goalie into a stud. I mean, what he's done with the Rangers goalies now with Lundqvist, Igor, Quick, all these guys, it's been amazing. One of the best to do it in the business, but Igor is our guy. He is the future. We need him to be right. We know when he's right, he can beat any team, any moment, especially in the playoffs. And last night you saw that. Hopefully that's the start. So we'll be back in action against the Canadiens on Thursday. I will also say this. Will Cooley's another guy that's been really good. The deadline is a little under a month away. Today's the 13th, so we're about what? I don't even know. Not going to try and do the math, but we're a little under a month away. March 8th is the trade deadline. I think you look at the Rangers and you have two clear needs, wing, and you're looking at a center. I think especially a center, definitely a need. But you also need a wing. I think that's another thing as well. So I think you look at it and you see how these next couple weeks go and, hopefully pick up a piece or two. And then from there, it's all in. It's crazy. The Rangers have, they're 53 games into this season. They've got 19. No, wait, I apologize. They've got 82 minus 53. We got to do the quick math here. 29 games left. It's a race to the finish. 71 points right now, 5-game win streak. 6 points ahead, Carolina. Carolina does have 2 games in hand. But third most points in the league. They're starting to get back into a groove. And it was so important for the Rangers to come out of this All-Star break and remain hot because Carolina went into the All-Star break hot. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They've also won 2 straight, so they've continued to hang around. But if the Rangers got off to a slow start, there was a good chance that they would be looking up at Carolina very fast. So very important for them. And the All-Star break came at a perfect time. And I think, there's always a lot of teams that the All-Star break will happen when they're really hot. And then it'll kill them because they'll come out of the All-Star break and all the momentum they had to lose it. The All-Star break came at a perfect time for the Rangers. I think it's coming at a perfect time, too, for the Knicks. They're banged up. To go into the All-Star break, come out, much-needed break. I think it's the same thing for the Rangers. They were struggling. Even with the win against the Senators, they needed that week off. Igor needed it, even though he went to the All-Star game. But they needed just a refresher. The month of January was bad. And they knew coming out, you had teams like the Avalanche and the Lightning waiting for them. You knew you had some big games come out of it. And they've taken care of business. So 5 straight. We'll get the Canadiens Thursday. Beatable. Very beatable. You win that. You feel good about that. 6 straight games. And you go into the Stadium Series, which should be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to that. That's Saturday, or Sunday rather, at MetLife Stadium, 3 Eastern. Rangers, Islanders, outdoors. A lot of fun. So should be exciting. Next couple of games here for the Rangers, a lot of fun. The next week of hockey is going to be awesome because you got the Canadiens Thursday, which isn't a big matchup, but you got the Canadiens Thursday. Still an original 6 matchup. And then after that, you got an outdoor game against the Islanders. Then you got the Dallas Stars coming to town, who's one of the best teams in the West, one of the best teams in the league. And then you got the Devils, of course, the division rival. And you got the Flyers, as always, a division rival. So the next couple games here against for the Rangers coming up are going to be really exciting. They're against some good teams. against some good teams. So 5-game win streak, getting hot at the right time. Hopefully they can continue here over the next couple weeks. They'll have the day off today. Nets will be in action tonight against the Celtics. Isles will host the Kraken at UBS Arena. And, that's what's on tap tonight for New York sports. Knicks last night got robbed, so they've lost 3 straight. I will send the message to Knicks fans. This is my message. Do not panic. Do not panic. Do not panic. Do not panic. We knew this was going to happen. They're out without OG Anunoby. They're without, of course, Julius Randle. You'd rather this happen now, this stretch happen now, than in the playoffs. Look, when the Knicks are healthy, I think there's really only 2 teams in the Eastern Conference that could probably beat them, and that's probably the Celtics and the Bucks. And I think you even make a case that they could probably take down the Bucks because you don't love Doc Rivers in the playoffs. He hasn't been able to get it done in a very long time. So, this Knicks team, when you look at the East, it's wide open. Wide open. I think they're the 3rd best at least. I think they should be better than the Cavs. They beat the Cavs last year, and the Knicks are only better than they were last year, so I don't see how they wouldn't. Knicks, I think it's a fun time. It's a really exciting time for hockey and basketball around here. You got the Rangers who are, playing well, going to make the playoffs, hopefully win the Metro, hopefully, get a home playoff round, all that good stuff, be a threat, be, one of the top teams in the East. And then you've got, of course, the Knicks, be right in the mix in the East. And you got the Islanders fighting for a spot. Now, I think it's a good chance the Islanders, the Islanders right now are fighting. They're definitely playing a lot better with Patrick Waugh. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. The Nets, look, they might make the play-in, but that's about it. The Nets they're not going to go very far. But the Islanders, when you look at the wild card right now, they are just 4 points out of Detroit. And so are the Devils. So you're going to have a Devils-Islanders battle for those final 2 spots in the wild card. So a good chance, there's a real possibility you get both hockey teams, the Knicks, and then the Nets might make the play and might, win the play-in and get to a first-round matchup. Dennis Schroeder may be MVP. It's, hockey, basketball, specifically the Rangers and the Knicks. You can make a strong case for both those teams to win the Stanley Cup and win the NBA Finals. You can. Not saying it's going to happen, but they've certainly both got a good fighting chance. So that'll do it for another podcast today here on a Tuesday program. We'll have more content coming your way here over the next couple days, over the next couple weeks. Baseball, spring training, all that good stuff, along with the hockey season continuing, NBA season as well. Just a little under a month away, just about a month away from free agency for the NFL. Of course, the NFL offseason is always a huge topic. The NFL is a 365-day-a-year sport. It's a year-round sport. You never stop talking about football. It's always on the forefront of people's minds. So that'll do it for another episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. More content coming your way. As always, hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.